Despite its name, the Big Bang Theory is not really a theory of a bang at all. It is really only a theory of the aftermath of a bang.
The Interplanetary Podcast. The exploration of space for the benefit of all mankind. Your hosts here in London, Matthew Russell and Jamie Franklin.
Oh yeah, baby, bang.
Bang. I got told off for the oh yeah, baby.
It was only a matter of time.
Yeah, listener said it's got boring now.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. Oh, dear.
Well, you do better then. I love that when people go, well, let's hear your podcast. But it doesn't bother me anymore, Matt, because I'm mindful.
Yeah, I'm
Sam Harris has taught me to just not care about it.
What I've done is I've meditated on the pain it caused me, and then I've accepted that feeling. I've decided how long I'm going to hold on to that feeling of hurt, and then I've cast it away.
How long did you hold on to it, Matt?
About 96 hours.
It's far too long. We're going to have to work on that for you. So, Matt, Alan H. Guth.
Alan H. Guth. We're going to be talking a little bit about Alan H. Guth. We can't talk about multiverses without him.
We absolutely cannot.
And as you desperately wanted to talk about multiverses, we're going to be talking about multiverses.
Deep.
And we've got our amazing interview with Matt Taylor.
Yes, we have.
One of our absolute space heroes.
So what a just complete ledge.
Well, he is actually a complete legend. Let's celebrate Alan Bean's birthday. He's born today.
Happy birthday, Alan. Rest in peace.
So, Jamie, you just before we came on air, you sent me a oh wow.
Yeah, I thought we couldn't go by without mentioning this because it just blew my mind.
There's a paper out called A Spatially Resolved AU Scale Inner Disk Around DM Tau by Tomoyuki Kudo et al.
If that doesn't get your juices flowing, I don't know what will.
But basically what that means is they're witnessing, using the Atacama Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array, or ALMA, the birth of a solar system that looks very much like our own.
I'm almost, and this doesn't happen a lot, Matt, does it? But I'm almost lost for words.
Yeah, you're getting a little bit teary over there.
I'm getting emotional. And this is the special, isn't it?
It'll give insight to how our own solar system was made.
That's what I was just about to say. It's like we've got a free opportunity to look back in time.
Mm.
Okay, we need to do a deep dive on that. We both have to read that paper. Can we speak more about it next week, please?
Talk more about the formation of our solar system next week, Tick.
Oh, your baby Tick. Sorry.
So, I'll tell you what was absolutely cool yesterday, Jamie.
Go on.
Guess whose house I visited?
Oh, the Queen's.
No, very close. Alan Bond, the King.
Oh, the King. How was it?
It was absolutely amazing. It was so cool because he's got all these little bits of memorabilia.
Oh.
If you listen to the first podcast when we interview him, the first thing he mentions is a rocket he built when he was 15 that he wanted to fly that would get 10 miles high.
Tell me he's still got it.
It's absolutely, it's on his mantelpiece. So it's called Poltergeist 1, and it was on top of his cupboard, and it was there. It's like, oh my God, is that the one? And he goes, yes, that's the one.
Oh my God!
And then he talked about another one that accelerated so fast, 800 Gs, that it left the paint on the launch pad, as in it accelerated so fast the paint came off.
What?
Yeah, but anyway, so while I was there, he kept looking at his phone saying, well, I'm expecting a press release, but it didn't come, and it came just after I left. And that was ESA giving the green light to the Sabre rocket engine.
Ah, yes.
So they've reviewed the preliminary design and have basically given it the green light. And this is what Mark Ford the head of ESA's propulsion engineering section, said, "The positive conclusion of our preliminary design review marks a major milestone in Sabre development. It confirms the test version of this revolutionary new class of engine is ready for implementation." And then I was around the guy who first conceived it and brought it as well. It's his baby, basically. The Sabre engine, and we'll talk about it more next week when we put the Alan Bond interview in. It could absolutely revolutionise both rocket flight and aircraft travel. It really is quite the thing.
It's an exciting one, for sure.
So yesterday we had 3 crew members arriving safely at the International Space Station.
Aboard the Soyuz MS-12.
Exactly right. And they are Nick Hague and Christina Koch of NASA and Alexei Ovchinin of Roscosmos. And of course, Nick Hague and Ovchinin were the 2 that had the aborted mission. So I bet Koch was a little bit frightened with her slightly jinxed crewmates.
Well, good luck to everybody. I hope that this time everything goes swimmingly.
Well, it has done. They've arrived. Yeah. They've arrived and joined Anne McLean,
Long may it continue.
David Saint-Jacques, and Oleg Kunenchko, and of course Christina Koch and Anne McLean are going to be going on the first all-female spacewalk later this month.
Long overdue.
Now, Jamie, the biggest news of the week, and this basically set Twitter afire.
Well, I knew something was up when I saw a reply from you, Matt, to Eric Berger, and it literally just said WTF. Yeah. And I thought, oh, well, I don't know what's happened, but I mean, Matt he's very shocked.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was one of those, what the hell? I mean, it kind of seems obvious, and for me, it just looks like an enormous nail in the SLS coffin, if I'm honest. But
so before we go into it, in a sentence, can you say in layman's terms what happened?
Jim Bridenstine.
Oh yeah,
yeah. He had to appear at a Senate Commerce Committee, and it was all about America's future in space, and he basically just blurted out. He was more concerned about meeting schedules, that NASA is like, we should meet schedules, and that's what is important. So if SLS isn't ready, we should just send the Orion capsule on demo mission 1 around the moon on another available rocket. And it's like, everyone's like, what? Say what? All these missions that were basically SLS only missions have suddenly, you can do them on other rockets. It doesn't matter. I mean, you have to change the entire thing because nothing is as capable as SLS at the moment. So you can't launch everything up at the same time. So you can't.
But that is a historic shift for NASA.
Yeah, no, it's huge. It is absolutely huge. And it started earlier in the week, I think, with some kind of. There were the budget, the NASA budget came out this week as well, and I don't think there's much need to talk about it because it's going to change massively before it actually gets done. But there were things like cancellations of sort of later stages of the SLS and things like that, which for me, I was looking at it and going, oh gosh, that looks horrible for SLS. But then this is even more horrible because it's basically saying you don't really need SLS. No. You can just do it on multiple rockets and just add a layer of complexity to it. So he basically said that it would require 2 vehicles.
Okay.
You would launch something like a Centaur upper stage, fully fueled, on one of your rockets, and then you would launch Orion on another heavy lift rocket, and then the 2 would have to meet in orbit, which is very similar to what John Young and Michael Collins, the great John Young and the great Michael Collins, did in Gemini 10 when they docked with an Agena upper stage. And we've talked about those missions before, all those special docking missions. And of course, the Russians have done it as well with their Soyuz to Soyuz missions. So it's not impossible. and it's something, of course, Orion should be able to dock, because it should be able to dock with the Lunar Gateway and all the other kind of things. So it's more about procedures and things like that have to be written. This all does seem like, though, doesn't give much turnaround time. June 2020 for designing these new procedures and everything to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, surely that's the irony, is that they're trying to make things quicker.
But you've made it more complicated. But obviously SLS is struggling massively, and
Yes. And you know what? This fair play in a way, isn't it? Because this would have taken a lot of thought and a lot of guts to say, you know what, let's try it this way. I mean, that is bold, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, Bridenstine is turning out to be one of the best NASA administrators ever. He's absolutely brilliant. You know, he. I mean, I said it with David Baker last week before all this, and he's turning out to just be extremely good and extremely competent. And he's absolutely out there making these comments, and he's not afraid to do them. Apparently, he's got Mike Pence has got his back as well, and of course, he's the person that really ultimately is responsible for it. The one guy that you should look out for all of this is a guy called Richard Shelby, and he's Alabama's senator. Now, all the work for these kind of rockets gets built in Alabama, so this is a hugely important economic thing for Alabama. And but Richard Shelby, he was a massive Constellation fan and kicked up a massive fuss when that got cancelled. And I guess it's kind of down to him that SLS was even a thing. And it often gets called the Senate launch system because basically it was basically, we can't lose all this expertise, we can't lose all this money from the area. You've got to give us something. So they gave Alabama SLS after they cancelled Constellation. So he's always been things very anti Elon Musk, of course, because Elon Musk doesn't have a factory in Alabama.
And do you know what Elon said about it?
Go on.
I just don't understand what his beef is.
Again, great impression.
That's perfect, wasn't it? That's exactly how he talks.
Elon Musk was talking about his beef with the commercial crew. And Elon Musk was saying, well, what's his beef? Because ULA are based in Alabama, so you just didn't get it. It's going to be interesting. Richard Shelby's the person that's going to be like utterly not behind this plan at all. But there's been quite a few other comments about this. For example, one of the things that people have been saying is, well, it's going to be a Delta IV Heavy because the Orion capsule's been launched on a Delta IV Heavy before. And you can't just put a capsule on top of like a Falcon Heavy because it's just they haven't built the adapters or looked at any of it before. So there's no way that could be ready for 2020. So it's got to be on something like an Atlas or a Delta because they're the only way you could turn it around on time. But the Delta IV Heavies, apparently, they take 36 months notice to build. So there's no way you could have one of them ready for 2020. And the ones that are being built for national reconnaissance missions. So that seems unlikely that they'll get bumped along. And if they do get bumped along, then ULA will have to massively delay their Vulcan rocket. So that doesn't seem likely either. So it's a really odd one because, can you actually turn around these Delta IV Heavies on time? What'd be really cool, though, is if they could and you have two Delta IV Heavies on the launch pads at the same time, flying within minutes of each other or hours of each other or days with each other. It'd still be really cool.
That would be very cool.
So
I'll still be up for that.
Yeah, no. So it's going to be, pretty spectacular whatever happens here. But there was
it was a shock, but you know what? I'm backing it. That's it. There, I said it.
Reading Eric Berger's article, there's a great comment in the comment section. I love the comment section actually of Eric's articles because there's loads of really clever people commenting down the bottom. But Eric said it is important to remember that United Launch Alliance is co-owned by Boeing and Lockheed Martin. Boeing is the primary contractor for the SLS rocket. The statement reflects this nuance. So obviously the statement from Jim Bridenstine, he was very careful not to piss everyone off, but it's quite hard.
Yeah.
And someone said that was a really polite way of stating the extremely difficult position ULA was put into by Bridenstine's trial balloon. It's like having your extremely jealous divorced dad's young girlfriend come on to you at a family gathering where you were going to ask him for some money for college.
That is genius.
Grey beard engineer, you're a legend for that one. That's very funny.
I love that. Big ups.
So yeah, that was the surprise news of the week. I kind of had to. That's why we were slightly late getting on the phone this week because it was like I'm gonna have to rip up the notes here because that kind of has to go in.
Surprise news of the week.
So Jamie, do you know what my space word of the week?
Well, I'm hoping it's 2 words and that it's eternal inflation.
Yeah, it was going to be 1 word, inflation. But as you wanted to do multiverses, I decided to do eternal inflation.
Well, it sounds cool, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it is very cool. So the theory of inflation states that the inflationary epoch of the universe, and we talked about this last week when we were talking about baryonic acoustic waves. We've gone very sciencey recently, Jamie.
We have.
Yeah. So 10 to the minus 36, that's 1 undecillionth of a second after the Big Bang, to 10 to the minus 3, or that's 1 decillionth of a second, to 100 nonillionth of a second. After
that's 3 words I've never heard before.
Yeah,
Carry
I know.
on.
Undecillionth, decillionth, and nonillionth.
Which is your favourite? Just asking you.
I think the undecillionth.
Me too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, being 1,000 times bigger than a decillionth.
Sounds like a sort of Norwegian black metal band, doesn't it?
Undecillionth. Supporting Cradle of Filth.
With a sheep's head on stage.
Oh, yes. So it's that tiny period, and more happens in that first few decillionths of a second than happens in the rest of the universe as we know it, really. But basically, the universe expanded ridiculously fast. Really, it was trying to explain the smoothness of space.
Mm.
It could be that this, instead of just having this inflationary period, this inflationary period lasts forever, and that's where you have eternal inflation. Yes. So our universe kind of is just like a little bubble that comes out of eternal inflation, where a little patch, basically, of space-time finds a stable vacuum energy and then sort of breaks off as a little baby universe, and then suddenly, instead of having eternal inflation, it then just goes out to your normal expansion of a universe that we see today, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is now a little bubble that's come off. But I guess one of the things that's really interesting about this little bubble that's broken off, the settings, the little dials of all the fundamental constants of the universe are exactly right for galaxies to form, stars to form, atoms to form, humans to form, robins to form, worms to form, all those sort of things. So it's like, why is the universe set where all the controls are just right? And then you get the anthropic principle that basically is, well, the reason why we see a universe that's just right is because we're in that universe, right?
Right.
So
who's to say we are defined right?
Well, no, it's just the fact that, the reason why we observe it is because we're observing it. Because we're here, we observe we're here because we are here. Yeah, you see what I mean?
But it's that same thing. But what I take from what you said is that, when people say, well, there must be a God because we're designed perfectly, and it's like, we're not. We're absolutely not. You're saying that because you think that we are perfect, but we're clearly not perfect, are we?
No. That is related to the anthropic principle. But the anthropic principle, what's good about this is that it's like, why is the universe so specifically set up like that? A really easy answer to that is, well, maybe you have an infinite set of these bubbles that break off eternal inflation. The inflation just keeps on going, but you occasionally get these little pocket universes, like little bubbles frothing off this eternal inflation that have different universes in. So there's lots and lots of different universes being created. Now that actually, weirdly, if you sort of have Occam's razor, you kind of have to reject it because it has too many assumptions. But if you use Kolmogorof's complexity, which is what's the smallest computer program that you could write to represent your current situation, the thing that you're trying to look at, it's easier to have a multiverse than a simple idiosyncratic universe. Do you want to talk about the multiverse?
Bloody love to, actually.
Alan Guth, who we started the quote that we started off with, and also there was Alexei Starobinsky and Andrei Lind. They were the first people to really come up with this inflationary theory. And the great thing about it is the cosmic microwave background that we talked about, the Planck and WMAP observations of it, those satellites that we've launched have pointed very, very strongly that inflationary theory is right. And there was always a problem with inflation, is that there was no consistent way to bring an end to the inflationary epoch. So how do you stop it? One of the solutions was proposed in 1982 by Andrew Lind and Andreas Albrecht, called the graceful exit problem.
Ooh, I like it.
Who showed how to end inflation without making empty bubbles and instead end up with a hot, expanding universe. New inflation. And then in 1983, Paul Steinhardt showed that this new inflation does not have to end everywhere. So that's like, whoa, what's happening here? It might only end in a finite patch or hot bubble full of matter and radiation. And then the inflation continues in the most of the universe while producing hot bubble after hot bubble along the way. So Alexander Velikin showed that when quantum effects are properly included, this is actually generic to all new inflation models. So when you solve the problem of a graceful exit, you essentially open up the fact that you've got this eternal inflation with lots and lots of hot bubbles coming out. And then Alan Guth steps in again in his 2007 paper. So this is quite recent stuff. Eternal Inflation and Its Implication. Which is a seminal paper and states that under reasonable assumptions, although inflation is generically eternal into the future, it is not eternal into the past. So he actually says, this states that there is at least a beginning of the universe,
right?
But also a beginning of the multiverse.
That's a hard one to think about, though, isn't it? Because you're sort of thinking that's a strange thought that somebody is saying that we could be in eternal bubble universes right now, but it wasn't always like that.
There was actually a start to this eternal inflation, and then all these little bubbles bubbling off are lots and lots of universes. But let's face it, the one thing that you kind of want to talk about is, well, where's the proof for all this absolute mind-blowing stuff? Now, one of the proofs is, one of the proposed proofs is that in the CMB map, the Molvaida map that we talked about last week, there is, if you look in the bottom right of the map, I was going to say the bottom right corner, but it's quite hard to have a corner of an oval.
Yeah, that's true.
Is a cold patch, which is blue basically, and that cold patch is like there's nothing else like it on the map. Now, one of the things that this cold patch could be is caused by a collision with another bubble universe.
But I'm just going to come at this from my pathetically underknowledged stance.
Well, you and me both.
Well, Matt, why would it be cold if there was a collision? Surely if there was a collision of two universes, it would be extremely hot, no?
Let's face it, do you really know what the physics are of colliding universes?
Of course not, but surely that would that not simply come down to matter meeting matter?
Remember, all of this comes out of the maths when you run these simulations or run the equations, that's what you end up with, a kind of cool patch where this collision has happened.
It's very true. I'm basing this on what happens on Earth, basically.
Yeah.
And that's not right.
Which would be really, whatever is intuitive is out the window at this point.
Are you saying, Matt, that basically the human brain can't really fathom it?
No, I think it can, because people are.
Oh, you just mean my brain?
I think that there's some amazing physicists. Well, my brain certainly can't, but I think there's amazing physicists out there who are Guth being like an absolute legend, who are sort of piecing together the early universe, and it just seems to be absolutely incredible. But the thing about this patch, Jamie, is that really, if you statistically speaking, 1 in 50 universes would have a patch like this just purely by statistical chance alone. You would expect that to happen. So we might be this 1 in 50 universes. There's no, it would be like, well, I'll tell you what it's like. It's like pulling out a playing card and saying, this is going to be the ace of spades, and pulling it out and it's the ace of spades. Essentially, that's the chances of it happening, and I'm sure that's.
I'd be impressed by it.
Yeah, you'd be impressed by it, but it's not so amazing that you have to kind of.
No.
Yeah. Or the second is that there's a massive void in space, a sort of massive bubble where just there was no matter for some reason. But there's been quite a few papers recently that seem to suggest that there isn't a void in space there, and they've done the calculation. So that is being ruled out. So the two sort of competing hypotheses are now multiverse collision or just pulling out an ace from a pack of cards. So really, you still have to go with pulling out the ace from a pack of cards if you're following Occam's razor.
I'm not going to follow Occam's razor, Matt. I'm a maverick.
You spotted another paper, didn't you?
This is testing inflation with large-scale structure, connecting hopes with reality. Marcelo Alvarez. Matt, this is going back to December 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes on to say the statistics of primordial curvature fluctuations are our window into the period of inflation where these fluctuations were generated. To date, the cosmic microwave background has been the dominant source of information about these perturbations. Large-scale structure is, however, from where drastic improvement should originate. Now, Matt, I want to give you some quotes here, because, as you know, I bloody love a quote, and it kind of makes me understand things more. So this is a quote from Matthew Johnson, Perimeter Associate Faculty Member.
Yeah, he was also one of the co-authors. There were so many authors on that paper.
There really was, wasn't there? He says, "We're trying to find out what the testable predictions of this picture would be, and then going out and looking for them." And specifically, he's been considering rare cases in which our potential bubble universe might collide with another. And he lays out what this might look like. He says, "We simulate the whole universe. We start with a multiverse that has 2 bubbles in it. We collide the bubbles on a computer to figure out what happens. And then we stick a virtual observer in various places and ask what that observer would see from there." I mean, what do you think of that, Matt?
It's absolutely ludicrous. So he's, instead of trying to look at the cosmic microwave background, they're looking at sort of large structures in the universe itself and saying that is possibly a better place to look. But it's also a better place to test inflation as well, perhaps, and that they've kind of exhausted the CMB, and that now just looking out at the greater space and these large structures and how they're formed will inform us more about what's going to happen.
Well, our man Guth, it's hard to build models of inflation that don't lead to a multiverse. It's not impossible, so I think there's still certainly research that needs to be done, but evidence for inflation will be pushing us in the direction of taking the idea of a multiverse seriously. And this is my favourite quote from Adam Mann. "Like a bit of froth on the crest of an ocean wave, Our observable universe may be nothing more than a slither sitting within the edge of a bubble that's constantly expanding into a higher dimension.
It's very...
Matt, I want that tattooed on my... I'm going to say my forehead.
Yeah, but you're going to be pretty disappointed if this whole multiverse ends up being a whole load of nonsense.
Yeah, but I just listened to it. That is amazing, isn't it? I mean, that is poetry. I know I get excited about these things, Matt, but I can't help it, all right?
Just to burst your bubble a little bit,
Oh,
quite literally, there have been a couple of papers quite recently. 2014, there was a paper by Coley and Haslam that called into question this whole idea. And they concluded that the theory of eternal inflation based on random quantum fluctuations would not be a viable theory, and that resulting existence of a multiverse is still very much an open question that will require much deeper investigation. So
no shit, Sherlock.
Yeah, and also a guy called Paul Davis, who wrote a piece in the New York Times, A Brief History of the Multiverse. He said, extreme multiverse explanations are therefore reminiscent of theological discussions, indeed invoking an infinity of unseen universes to explain the unusual features of the one we do see is just ad hoc as invoking an unseen creator. The multiverse theory may be dressed up in scientific language, but in essence, it requires the same leap of faith. So basically, we've just been wasting the listeners' time with our ridiculous theory of the multiverse. But I
don't completely agree. No,
I don't.
Paul Davis.
No, I don't agree with that, because anything that's born out of mathematics and has a reason why it might exist, and the theory might exist, is not the same as evoking a creator that has no hypothetical reason for being. It's at least this stuff is based. It's a bit like string theory itself. String theory. Well,
science is chipping away at the answers that they don't know, unlike faith.
Yeah, I mean, string theory is often called a non-science because there's no prediction, so you can't really test it. So it does feel like a leap of faith. But
how long's a piece of string, Matt?
There is a length of rope, isn't there? Like in the fire brigade, you can have a length.
Is there?
Yeah. In the fire brigade, rope has a specific length, so maybe string does as well. I've got just to add to the complexity of this subject. Brian Greene, who is one of my favourite science authors, he wrote about the 9 types of multiverse.
Here we go.
So you've got your quilted.
Is that 3-ply?
Quilts are made of like those hexagons, and in the old-fashioned quilts. Basically, if the universe is infinite, you'll have repeating universes throughout this infinite universe because there's only so many combinations you can have.
Got it.
Inflationary multiverse, so that's what we were just talking about. You have your brain multiverse, where these universes exist on brains, membranes, and they're all stacked up on one another. You have cyclic multiverses. You have landscape multiverses. You have quantum multiverses, i.e., every time a quantum event happens, you split off into a new universe. Right. You have the holographic multiverse. And
I like that one.
And so that's the theory that the surface area of a space can encode the contents of the volume of a region.
What?
Well,
say that again.
So the surface area of a space can encode the contents of the volume. You know, when you look at a holograph, that's exactly what's happening. You've got a two-dimensional plate of glass, for example, with a holograph on it, but it's encoded the entire volume of something, hasn't it? Because you can move around it and see the thing.
Okay.
So the holographic principle at the moment is something that's blowing scientists' mind. Simulated universes. So there might be lots and lots of universes being simulated on a massive computer somewhere. And
is someone controlling me, Matt?
Yeah. And then, of course, you have the ultimate multiverse. That's every mathematical possible universe under different laws of physics. So,
God damn.
You have to think about all those things.
Well, Matt, can I just ask you one thing?
Mm-hmm.
If you were a betting man, what type of universe would you say is the correct one? What is your money going?
What with multiverses?
With all of those 9 types. What are you picking?
I'm going to go with a single idiosyncratic universe.
Wait, was that even on there?
Well, yeah, I'm not. I'm just not going with the multiverse
Oh.
at the moment. I'm not going with it.
Oh.
I think I'm super open to the idea of a multiverse, and imagine how exciting it would be if that little blue patch in the CMB turned out to be a collision with another
God.
universe.
Oh my God, Matt! For now, I'm going to go with simulated because I'm the yin to your yang.
Yeah, you and Elon Musk. Drink.
Can I just say, Matt, if someone is controlling me, can they just stop so much, please? Just kidding. Okay,
well, that's not going
what's
in.
up next? We've got so silly. Matt, we have an interview coming up, and we loved this one, didn't we?
Absolutely. We took it. It was quite hard to get him on because it was almost he's actually a very modest chap, and it was quite hard. He just didn't think that there was of any interest, but he was wrong.
He thought, "Why do you want to talk to me? What do you want to talk to me about?" And then we talked to him, and I think our listeners will know exactly why we wanted to talk to Matt.
Yeah.
Shall we roll the tape?
Yeah, let's have a listen to Matt Taylor of ESOR.
Here we go.
Écoutez.
The Interplanetary Podcast, putting the ace back into space.
We're joined by Matt Taylor. Whereabouts are you, Matt? Whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm in my office. No, I'm in ESTEC, the European Space Agency's Research and Technology Centre here in Noordwijk in the Netherlands.
So although you have an English accent, we are all very, very far away from one another right now.
I guess so.
It's pretty true.
Well, astronomically relatively close, but yeah, I guess.
Yeah, we're nearer than Rosetta, for sure.
Yes, certainly.
Well, we were lucky enough to visit your the place you're in right now. When was it, Matt? Last year?
Yeah, last year.
Incredible.
Wasn't last year. No, it wasn't the last time ESTEC Open Day. It was the ESTEC Open Day before.
Okay.
So yeah, the last one, Julio kept sending me pictures and saying, "Oh, look, you're missing out." So
yeah, you missed this one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I suppose you missed my talk then.
We did. Annoyingly, we did miss your talk because we were. I can't remember which of the astronauts we were interviewing at the time, but we had to.
Yeah. It's a hectic day, that one. But in a way, it's good because you missed seeing my talk with me in my stormtrooper outfit. It's quite sweaty. It's quite sweaty. I have to say.
Yeah, we did. I did see plenty of tweets with you walking around with you, but I never actually saw you on the day. Yeah, annoyingly. Otherwise, we'd have grabbed you. It's
quite nice to wear that on the day because nobody knows it's me. I mean, nobody knows who I am now anyway. But around Rosetta time, when I did wear it, it was quite a nice way of becoming incognito, and then freaking people out by saying, "Oh, there's a guy, Guido. He runs the Swiss Space Museum, and I knew he was coming to one of the open days, and we were standing there with the Dutch garrison dressed as stormtroopers and various other characters, and he came up and asked if we could have a photograph, etc. And I was standing there, and I turned around to him, in my stormtrooper outfit, and said, "Hi, Guido, was it a long trip from Switzerland?" And he freaked out, going, "Oh my God, the stormtroopers know everything." So I had to come clean and say, "Oh, it's Matt, by the way." Anyway, yeah, it's a nice way of being incognito.
When we're trying to think of guests for the podcast, we're thinking of, in particular, kind of, I guess, British legends of space, of which there, of course, aren't that many. We don't have really a space program as such, and so your name keeps coming up for various reasons. Can you take us right from the beginning of how you got into how you got into space and where it all began for you?
Okay. Well, let's go. As a kid, I like Lego. I like Star Wars. We've mentioned that, but I think the biggest influence was my parents, and certainly my father, who was a bricklayer and basically didn't want me to be a bricklayer. So he was. How can I put it? He was strongly encouraging me to stay in school and get an education, etc., and was always, one of the things I remember as a kid, we used to go over to my uncle Johnny's house, and my dad and John used to talk. It's the classic old school men sitting there talking about stuff. And they'd always go on about, or Johnny would always go on about how physics is an important subject, and it was the science of the world around us. And my dad got into that and was kind of pushing that onto me. And so I wouldn't say I was super excited about physics, but at least I had something to go, oh, I think I'll look at physics. So ultimately, through high school, I was doing sciences and maths, and then did A-levels in maths and physics, and did a degree in physics at Liverpool University, which is a fantastic experience. And I've been lucky enough, because of Rosetta, etc., to go back and do talks up there. It's a really, all the memories come flooding back after 2 decades. During that time period, I've jumped quite quickly here from, why I went into physics, etc. I was toying with the idea during my undergrad years of becoming a professional scientist, but I didn't know which path I wanted to go down. Liverpool was a very strong particle physics university, but I did one course in astronomy, and that kind of made me go, oh, I wouldn't mind having a look at this. So I applied to do a couple of PhDs and got a PhD position at Imperial College to do plasma physics. So I'm not an astronomer per se. I don't, I've only recently got a telescope, but I was taken by this aspect of examining what space is, what it feels like, if you want. So looking at what plasma is, this ubiquitous phenomenon that interlaces the universe. So I did a PhD in space plasma physics. It coincided with the launch of a wonderful mission called Cluster, which was launched in 2000. So I finished my thesis around the time of when that was launched, and I immediately got a postdoctoral position working on one of the instruments on Cluster, an instrument that collects electrons in a plasma. So this mission is a full spacecraft mission. It's still flying now, flying around the Earth, examining the interplay between the outer atmosphere of the sun, the solar wind, and the Earth's magnetic field. So really looking at the physics behind the aurora. And I was working on one of the instruments there at the forefront of the activity, ended up talking to lots of people, interacting with all the other scientists in the community. As a PhD, as a PhD scientist, you do these postdoctoral positions, which increases your training as a scientist. So I did one post working on Cluster at Mullard Space Science Laboratory, part of University College London down in Surrey. Then got a position in Los Alamos National Laboratory, still working on Cluster, but diversifying to other spacecraft as well, looking at energetic particles in the magnetosphere, this bubble that's formed in the solar wind by the Earth's magnetic field. And then came back to the UK, back to Europe to work again in Mullard Space Science Laboratory, but this time working on a Chinese collaboration with ESA called Double Star, which was using spare instruments from the Cluster mission but putting them on Chinese spacecraft. And I was one of the instrument operators on those spacecraft, and then applied to a job at the European Space Agency. In those 5 years of being a postdoc, I'd found my most how can I say it? The thing that drove me the most is working in teams and working to support science, and that is really what the role of a project scientist is. So I applied for the job of a deputy project scientist of Cluster in 2005. Got the position, and since then I've been working at ESA. So I'm going to have a drink and a breath now because I kind of pour dumped. There you go. That's 15 odd years or something.
Wow. Yeah, that is some journey. So. With when you're a project leader in that sense, where we're up to now, is that really technical, or is it less technical and more personality driven?
The role of project scientist, you're really a facilitator. Your role is to make sure people can do science on the mission that you're involved in. So it's less, you have to have a technical understanding of the mission. And again, this depends on what part or what time you are on the mission. So a project scientist during the building of the mission is very focused on ensuring that the science requirements are met by the technical implementation by the instrument builders and the platform builders, etc. So it depends what time of the mission you're in. I've only worked on the operational stage, where your fundamental role is being the interface between the community and the European Space Agency. So really making sure that the engineers can do what the science community want with the spacecraft and with their instruments that they're flying on the spacecraft. So it's really, for want of a better phrase, people management. So I really am in there to massage egos where they exist, and I think that. Thinking of Rosetta, the best description, it's not trying to make sure everyone's happy, it's trying to make sure everyone is equally unhappy. That's the best way I can describe this. And of course, also, you're there to be the voice of the mission from the agency perspective, and to, demonstrate excitement and try and drive excitement for the public and both the layperson and the interested scientific public.
Actually, Matt, you mentioned China earlier. Just on a tangent, obviously, there's some exciting things happening on the moon as we speak. What's your view on their stamp of power doing this?
Well, my experience, and as I say, I worked with our Chinese colleagues on this double star mission. It's in fact the first collaboration between ESA and China, and it worked very, very well. Still have great colleagues and friends in China from the basis of that mission. They can do stuff very well, so good. The more people involved in this, I've got this. I always go back to the kind of Gene Roddenberry view that we should all be working together, because otherwise Absolutely. We're not going to get out of the quagmire that we're in. So it's all good to have people working on this and have different nations accelerating, because there's a little bit of a race as well. So one person. I know, for example, I was supposed to be having a dry January, but I failed completely. It would have been better maybe if a few of my colleagues were also having a dry January, because peer pressure works there and it kind of drives you to do things, same as a training partner. So having other agencies doing things right kind of pushes things along. I mean, you just have to look back at the Apollo program and some of the more political reasons the US went to the moon. It was a race, and that drives things. It drives technology development and all kinds of things. So yeah, I think it's good, and it's great to see cotton being grown on the moon.
Yeah, that's incredible.
The shoots coming out now.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a really good point. You kind of touched on it there. That whole area of what is going to drive space. Is it going to be competition, or is it going to be collaboration, or a really brilliant hybrid of the two? What do you reckon?
Well, I think it's both. I mean, we can't do these things without collaboration, and I won't get too political, in particular with the UK scenario and situation at the moment, but I work for the European Space Agency, and it works because we do a lot of collaboration. Without it, we couldn't have done Rosetta. You just look at the team that I was referring to is across Europe and across the world. So you have close collaboration on projects together, but there's a little bit of competition sometimes that will push you forward in that way. But I would say most of the time now we're talking about strong collaboration. Just look at Bepi Colombo recently being launched. That's a great mission and a great demonstration of interagency collaboration.
Yeah, it's one of my favourite missions. Brilliant.
What would you say, Matt, is the advice that you could give to any of our listeners who, like you, when you were younger, have this fascination about space, but they're not really quite sure how to get into a certain sector? What would be your advice on trying to get into the industry?
Well, I have to say, I wouldn't say that I was, I didn't know that if I look back 20 years ago, well, probably 25 years ago, because I'm getting on, maybe even 30 years ago, I would not have expected me to be where I am now. Sure. My plan was always, let's see if I get through this next step, let's take stock of where I am and move on. So that I guess you could see that I was like, right, let's do science at high school, go into A-level, let's go to university, do physics. Physics will get me to be a professional scientist. What field do I want to go into? Right. I think my main advice that I give all the time is don't sweat if you're not inspired, because this is, I'm the father of two teenagers, and there's a lot of pressure on kids, so I'll target this on teenagers and people in school. There's a lot of pressure on you to know what you have to do and what you're going to do in 20 years' time, what career you're going to take. That's a bit too much pressure, I think. I think, just try and look at shorter term goals, trying to do those achievements that set you in good stead in the end. So don't worry too much if you don't know what you're going to do. Just try and keep achieving. And if you fail, dust yourself off and try again. Of course, if you try 15 times and you're really failing all the time, that might be an indication that you might not be the best set for that. So it's like me trying to be a long distance runner or something. I know that I can't be because I'm not built for it. But the key thing being, don't let failure put you off. It's a great teacher. There's probably a Yoda quote in there somewhere.
Yeah,
but that's my suggestion. I couldn't give you a magic path as to how to get into these into space related activities, but it's more about the short term stuff. Look at your short term goals, try and achieve them. Don't be scared of failure. Just try and just keep smiling. That's the main thing.
I like it.
We've got to your career at this point, but I guess the thing that most people know you for is Rosetta. What was that like to start on and to be part of? And what was it like? Because you became pretty famous and infamous. Were you kind of prepared for that? And how did that all feel and come about?
I wasn't. I don't think anyone was prepared for how big Rosetta actually got in the end. We knew it was going to be big, but not that big. So I was given the opportunity to join the mission quite late in its life, and I knew it was going to be a tough task because the team, the science working team, that's the group of principal investigators, the lead scientists on each instrument, plus a couple of interdisciplinary scientists. That's my main interface to the community. They're the ones that run, well, not kind of, they're the ones that were doing the operating of their instruments on the spacecraft. So you really, as a project scientist, have to have a good working relationship with that team. And I came on board and had to rapidly develop an interaction with them, and that goes back to the making sure everyone's equally unhappy. It was a mission going to the unknown, and there was so much going on at the same time. That's the thing with Rosetta. And now when I look back in hindsight and we kind of look at what we could have done here and what we could have done there, it's very difficult to separate the hindsight of situations. That there were times where you go back and we were working on very limited information in terms of how we could go about certain problems because we'd gone to something that we didn't know what it looked like. We didn't really know what its density was and this kind of thing. So it really was, I probably overuse this term, a roller coaster ride, and was strikingly more intense than any of us could have envisaged. In particular, given the public interest and the fact that, the only reason I'm talking to you now is because of Rosetta. I was working for years I spent most of my career before Rosetta working on this, the cluster mission I referred to before. It's a fantastic mission. It's still, I wouldn't say let's say it's I hold it dear to my heart because my career has been based on that. I started with it. But it didn't have the ingredients of excitement maybe that Rosetta had. And also my mum didn't really understand, still doesn't understand to some extent what space plasma physics is, but she definitely knew what Rosetta was and what it was doing. So at least it was easier for me to explain to my mother what I was doing for 25 hours a day.
So every 12th of November, are you raising a glass of something nice?
I have to say, looking back, it's pretty difficult. There are certain periods of time which was so stressful. I don't think I don't recollect the landing week very well at all. I still, whether there's some kind of psychological blackout or something, I don't really remember certain aspects of what was going on. Of course, there's the colleagues here, Fred Jansen, who was a mission manager at the time, down the corridor, and Joe Zender, who now works on. So Fred, he's the mission manager now, the Gaia mission. Joe Zender is the deputy project scientist of the Bepi Colombo mission. You see, he's got a fantastic beard now. But at the time, during November 2014, he was charged with he was one of the main interfaces with the lander team, the Philae lander team. So every now and again, we have a little chat about reminiscing on certain things, and it helps to have other people around to remember what the actual timeline was. But I would be able to recollect better the event of the end of mission, which to me really everything just came out. I kind of nearly had a breakdown on the Sky at Night with Chris Lintott, but it really was up to that point. there'd been certain personal things going on in 2016 as well, in 2015, because my father had terminal cancer and passed away in 16, and all of that came, and any stress and any interaction, I missed my kids growing up, and my wife had put up with a lot as well. And that all kind of came out at the end of Mission. So it really kind of exploded in my mind. I had a bit of a reset then. But yeah, looking back there, it was a phenomenal ride. It's provided me certainly with some fantastic opportunities to meet personalities and people from completely different backgrounds to me. And that was all because of Rosetta. So getting to meet people from TV, getting to meet musicians, etc., was all because of Rosetta, because of the public, the humanity's fascination with this mission and what we were doing.
Favourite musician you've met?
Well, I wouldn't want to name specific, but
Sure.
I think the main one for me, which maybe not everyone is familiar with, the first, and this maybe is touching on Space Rocks and where the origins of some of the interactions and where that was born. During the landing event, a fantastic gentleman called Alexander Milas, who was the editor of Metal Hammer magazine at the time, was trying to contact me to talk to me about, my career, kind of the questions you've been asking me, and about Rosetta. Mainly because of, is that you or me or...
That's not
no,
me.
Sorry, it's my mother.
Oh.
I'll just
Let's get her on.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, Mum.
Oh, no.
I'll start again.
I feel really bad.
No, it's okay. She does that every now and again. She phones me up during the day and says, "Are you at work?" I'm like, "It's like, are you part of ESA checking that I'm at work?" So anyway, I digress. Right. November 2014, Alexander Milas, the editor of Metal Hammer magazine at the time, was trying to get an interview with me based on the work that I was doing with Rosetta, but also because of what I look like, basically. I've got tattoos. It's this whole thing of demonstrating that people's perceptions of scientists are perhaps a bit skewed. So the fact that somebody with tattoos could be a scientist is something that he was interested in, this picture. So I worked out to try and have an interview or to talk with him, and it happened to be that we met backstage at a Morbid Angel concert in Islington in London, and there was a very bizarre interaction where he was asking me questions backstage whilst one of the support acts, I think it was Unfathomable Ruination, were taking their kit off stage. So there'd be him asking me what my favourite, name a favourite track or whatever. I think I was talking about Napalm Death at the time. So the guys are going, okay, there's this weird-looking guy backstage, that's fine. And then the next time they come past, carrying the drum riser and a few other bits, we're talking about the evolution of the solar system. And then one of the guys looked around, one of the roadies went, "Oh, you're him." And then so we had this weird interaction backstage with this other band. But what I'm getting to is so we had that interaction with Alex, but he got me to meet Dave Vincent from Morbid Angel, who, that was the first death metal band that I got into, the first death metal band that I went to see. So that was an interesting one. And inevitably, and it turns out that off the back of that, I had some interactions with Dave Vincent and then ended up staying at his house in Texas, because I'd gone to the Lunar and Planetary conference, and it was the week. It was around the time of South by Southwest festival, and Dave was running a little event there. So I went to that to do some outreach stuff, and then went to this science convention. It was one of these really weird whistle-top, this weird experience that happened all again because of Rosetta. But then jumping back to Alexander, he then was kept in contact because we did a couple of things with Metal Hammer and various things. And he said, "Oh, I'd like to invite you to this Golden Gods Award." And I said, "Well, I'm really busy at the moment. Things are going on with Rosetta, etc. So I'll see if I can fit in the schedule." I kind of ring-fenced it, but then a lot of stuff was going on around that time. And I said, "Look, I'm not going to be able to make it because there's just so much travel going on. I was trying to reduce my travel for personal reasons." And he said, "Look, I really want you to come because we're going to give you an award. We're going to give you this award, the spirit of metal kind of thing. It's somebody that's not classically into, is not a musician or whatever, but kind of displays some kind of metal spirit." So that was what he. So he's
nice.
This, and then he said, "And also, there's a guy from your old university that wants to present this to you," and that was how I made this connection with Brian May. So I actually then go to this bloody award ceremony, see all of these bands that I used to be, fascinated with. I'm having a backstage conversation with Mike from Suicidal Tendencies, and then get a phone call from New Zealand to do a radio interview whilst I'm waiting to go on stage with Brian May, who's going to do this presentation to me, and then subsequently I have to present to him. So yeah, that's name dropping. I think one of the biggest ones is with Brian May, because we've continued talking and interacting, and hopefully we'll be doing some more work with the Rosetta images. So as you asked, there are a couple of names dropped: Dave Vinson and Mike. I think it's Mike Muir, isn't it, from Suicidal, and then Brian May.
Excellent. That's amazing. Well, we're keeping plugging away. We will get Brian May on the show one day.
No, well, I was just going to say, so the Brian May presumably is doing those stereo images of Rosetta. Is that right? Are you working with them on something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully that'll happen. But, we've been talking about it for ages. So whether it will happen, I don't know. But it's just one of these things that's been there. Every time I see him, we talk about it. And in particular, off the back of New Horizons, I've been chatting with him a bit. And off the back of this Moon book in particular, I went to the opening again. Lucky me. Went to the Science Museum and got to see him do the presentation there, and we had a brief chat there saying, I'll keep on hassling him, saying, it's all very well you going swanning off and doing all this New Horizon stuff with Alan Stern, but what about Europe? Come back here and do some stuff.
Absolutely. So looking into 2019, Matt, what would you say you're most excited about? You mentioned New Horizons and we mentioned the Moon. Is there anything coming up later this year that you're like, oh, can't wait for that?
From the ESA perspective, we have the Chaos launch at the end of this year, which is a big year. So, I'm looking forward to that for various reasons. One of them because my great colleague Kate Isaac, who I went and had coffee with, we always have a nice, she's just down the corridor. We're chatting, just not about science stuff, but about general people and whatever. But she's just a very nice character and colleague, and it's good to see colleagues get to that stage where they've been working on this mission and it's going to launch. And I find that fascinating when I see so I was mentioning Joe Zender before, who works on Bepi Colombo, and Johannes Benkoff, the project scientist of Bepi Colombo, seeing those colleagues go through the mill of when the industry phases on, and then the launch and the relief. So Kate's got that coming up, so she'll get to enjoy the launch and seeing the fruits of her labour then go up, and then the science starts turning up. For me, though, personally, I have to say it's a bit selfish. Maybe I'm interested to see in the science directorate of ESA. We made a call last year for ideas for quite what we call a fast mission. So this is a mission budget of around 150 million, and we will select a mission in summer this year. So I'm hoping that one of those missions will get selected and I'll be given the nod to work on it. So that's what I'm looking forward to personally. So as well as Cheops,
nice.
it's the next step, because Rosetta's finished for nearly, it's about 2.5 years now. I'm phasing out gradually working on it, and having something new like that would be it is of great interest to me. So we'll see what happens.
Is your daily job still revolving around Rosetta still, or what are the other kind of projects you're working on currently?
Oh, okay. This might sound really boring, but yeah, the majority of my time is still spent being the Rosetta project scientist. So organising meetings, doing reports, and trying to, stimulate activity there. I'm now also working with colleagues here within the science directorate in the coordination area. They are the people that interface with the different agencies and identify where perhaps in the future we could do collaboration. So I'm working with them, specifically looking at some of the more plasma physics missions that could be coming up from NASA, and also examining how there's a new it's been running. There's a program called Space Situational Awareness in ESA, where they have different programs to do with debris clearance and asteroid deflection, and also space weather. So I'm interfacing with that part of ESA to see where and how potentially science could get involved in the future. So interagency, but also intra-agency inside the agency. I'm doing that role, which is more political, I guess. And more recently, I've been dabbling, as it were, with my colleagues in human and robotic exploration, so the people that do the ISS, the International Space Station, and ExoMars and such, looking at potential opportunities that could be afforded by the Lunar Gateway. So this NASA-led activity of sticking something around the moon in the 20s. So looking at potential payloads that we could put on there. So that's something that I'm also working on, as well as dabbling with, I use the word dabbling a little bit here, with my colleagues in Earth observation, because there's a fantastic mission called Swarm, which is a low altitude mission that looks at the Earth's magnetic field. And we were connecting that years ago and have been ever since it was launched a good few years ago now, with Cluster, looking at how the Earth's magnetic field evolves out into this beyond when it gets further away from the Earth, but also how the core magnetic field works, and just doing some work with them as well. So there's a few. I've just basically been putting my fingers out, waiting, because as I say, I'm waiting for this F-class mission. I was involved in some of the proto studies in that, but I'm just kind of dabbling because I was, Rosetta happened, and I thought, oh, I'll try and see what else is going on in the agency.
Sure.
I mean, when you said it was going to sound boring, it sounds like it's extreme. It sounds like absolutely amazingly exciting to me. It sounds
in the end, though, it's all about writing reports and answering emails. So, yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I had this during Rosetta when there'd be people going, I'd really like to shadow you for a day. I think all you do is see me shouting at a monitor and filtering emails.
I'm glad at least we share that.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. It's a common thing. Everyone knows Word, everyone knows email programs, and that's it. It's the same wherever you are. It's just what you're working on. So that was actually a thing that I came to realise and was trying to promote it to colleagues that were working on Rosetta to go out and do talks, because we would get very frustrated. Some of the interactions personally and professionally became very difficult because of the stress levels of the mission. But when you then go out and do a talk to a school or to a bunch of interested, an amateur astronomy group, and they'd just be wowed by what you're doing. And you're coming out with these words going, oh, hang on a minute, I work on this mission. It does sound quite nice, and I shouldn't moan that much about my day-to-day work. So, yeah. What
is happening with Space Rocks? What's the next big kind of event?
Well, that's TBD actually at the moment, and there's some of the stuff I wouldn't like to reveal. I should probably, because I mentioned the evolution, but that connection I mentioned, Alexander Milas, that's where Space Rocks was partly born. Was that interaction with Alexander that I had, and then I put him in contact with Mark McCaughrean here, the senior science advisor of ESA Science and Exploration, and from that grew this partnership with a company that Alex formed, and that's where Space Rocks came from, saying we have identified a way to try and it's a mechanism of showing that the crossover between science and culture and music and art, etc. Again, because of Rosetta, because of some of the opportunities we were afforded. We've spent about for the last 5 years, we've been going to science fiction conventions because of that broadened interest, a heightened interest because of Rosetta. And that's that's a little bit Space Rocks related. Alex had identified, along with Mark and myself, that's something we should try and keep going, keep the momentum going. And that's where Space Rocks is at the moment. So stay tuned, because there are things in the pipeline, but I don't want to put too many spoilers out, and I'd rather leave it to Alex and Mark, maybe if you're going to chat with them, maybe.
This is the thing. Well, head over to spacerocksofficial.com for all the latest details on that. Amazing. Well, Matt, one thing we can't let you go without doing is we ask every guest if they can give us their favourite fact, their favourite space fact. Do you have anything buzzing around that you can blow our minds with?
Oh God! Right, what have I got? Space.
Probably should have asked you this in advance, so apologies.
Well, I'd have to default to my facts that I spit out when I'm doing my kind of almost automatic Rosetta presentations.
Sure.
I think this was it. I mean, yeah, this was the big one, and one of the challenges we always had, and one of the challenges with doing anything to do with orbiting around small bodies like this, in particular comets, is the fact that the comet, although it looks very rocky and dense, it wasn't very dense at all. It could float in water. Its density was half that of ice. So, right, it's low density. That means it's not that. It hasn't got that much mass, so its gravity is quite low. So when you consider that on Earth you can I think if you jumped 4 centimeters off the ground, you'd come back. But if you exerted the same escape velocity, if you exerted the same kind of jump on the comet, you'd achieve escape velocity and never come back down again. So I think that was something that we always put across when we give talks about Rosetta, because you look at it and think, oh, it's just, you can orbit that. It's really difficult. That's why it was so difficult to land and to orbit around the thing, because there's not much of it there.
So presumably that's why Philae touched the comet, then bouncing straight back up again.
Yeah. I mean, actually, the original target for Rosetta was a comet that was much smaller, so they had to put a bit of strengthening on the Philae lander because the object that we were going to was more massive. So the gravity was actually stronger on this one. So they had to strengthen the shock collar on Philae. As you say, it bounced a couple of times and it clipped. I think it's the first bounce, or there was a clip that it did during its 1 over kilometre traverse across the lobe, the head lobe. That if it hadn't have done that, it possibly could have gone into orbit and maybe have been lost. So fortuitous bouncing.
Excellent.
That is amazing. What a fact that is.
I'm going to have one last question. So, were you excited about the Ultima Thule flyby because of its because I thought it looked ridiculously similar to Rosetta, and I did notice you were the first to point out to NASA that it wasn't the first object like that they'd found.
They made an excited comment saying this is the first time we've seen a bilobed object, and it's not just Rosetta. There's a couple of objects alongside 67P Churyumov-Gerasimenko, Rosetta's target comet. There are a couple of other comets that look a bit like that as well. I think the key thing here is, and this. It was the devil's in the detail. Now, Alan and colleagues had made statements in a press conference that were completely correct. It's just when you try and compress that into a tweet, it becomes very difficult. I am very familiar with that. So it was just a little slip of a tweet, as it were, and it was corrected subsequently, because it is a fascinating object and it's great to make that connection. This Kuiper Belt object is a comet before it becomes a comet. So making that connection, saying you've got this primordial comet, this primordial object, you're saying that bilobe nature, the fact that it's got these two bits stuck together, it's probably that's how it is out in the Kuiper Belt. Now, Rosetta and other, Churyumov-Gerasimenko and other comets, when they're in the inner solar system, potentially the fact that they've got a similar looking shape doesn't necessarily mean that they were formed that way out in the Kuiper Belt. They could have split up and then come back together again in their subsequent orbit. So that's the thing here. That's the difference here. That the fact that that's out there in the Kuiper Belt, that's how it started. It hasn't had any processing from the sun, etc. So that's why I think they changed it to be a primordial bilobed object. But nonetheless, it's fantastic that we have something out there doing these observations. And I remember having this interaction with Alan Stern, who was a PI. He had the Alice instrument on Rosetta, so we had a close collaboration and close interaction during the mission. He made this statement that we had to wait for one of these objects to come in to go and investigate, where he was going gung-ho and just flying out to go and meet these things with New Horizons. So yeah, it's all good. We're all happy that these missions are going on and inspiring.
Yeah, it's amazing that small bit of evidence could be, all these missions that just get that little bit more evidence and widen our human knowledge. It's incredible, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it fascinates me. Again, coming back from, I had a plasma physics background, so I never really looked at images and some of the instruments that we had on Rosetta I wasn't fully familiar with, but now I fully appreciate the science that you can do with those instruments. And it's just fascinating piecing these pieces of evidence together, saying, for me, with Rosetta, the fact that we discovered this molecular oxygen, and it surprised everyone, and then the implications of that in terms of how that means the comet would have been formed so many billion years ago, and what the implications are for the temperature of the cloud of dust and gas before the sun was formed. So there, you just go, oh, we detected this, so what? Or you look at the object and say, well, it looks like this. There are implications just by observing the spatial structure of the thing, what it smells like, etc., that are quite have a massive impact. And so doing these studies, it doesn't just talk about how our solar system has evolved. So the stuff that we do with New Horizons and also Rosetta and other small bodies missions, they have implications outside of our own solar system. So there's a lot of work being spun off of the Rosetta results, connecting to other stellar systems, looking at the gas clouds and the astrochemistry that we see around them, based on or using some of the Rosetta results, saying, well, we saw this in Rosetta, can we see that in this gas cloud on that target here? And we do see it. So it's more than just our solar system and how we came about on the Earth. It's how solar systems evolve in general around the galaxy and the universe.
Yeah, it's like being a detective, isn't it? I mean, the last the one thing that I haven't heard about recently is was this Rosetta results was almost the nail in the coffin in terms of Earth getting its water from comets. Is that does that still hold, or is that one of those things that's kind of gone away?
I think that we can make the statement that it's highly unlikely that right. Let me try and phrase this correctly.
Not in a tweet way.
That comets weren't a major delivery mechanism for water. I think that's the best way to say it. However, there are other there are other things that we found on the comet, other gases and such that when we do the comparison with the Earth's atmosphere, we can see that there's actually a significant amount that when you look at the ratios, etc. So comets might not have delivered water, but they could have been significant in the delivery of other building blocks, if you want, or ingredients to the Earth, its atmosphere, etc. But I would say, that result kind of indicated that it went along with some other previous results. It's just some of the Herschel results were showing a difference. The Herschel spacecraft was looking at this deuterium to hydrogen ratio in other comets and found some different, things that were not lying on the same path. But then Rosetta, our in situ investigation, showed that it was back to what people had been thinking anyway, that comets were delivered maybe a bit of the water. It was more to do with asteroids, and potentially the Earth itself might have retained retained water in the subsurface, but they have other ingredients that would have been delivered by these comets that may have led to us.
Yeah, so they're pretty important.
Oh, that's mind blowing.
Can I ask you two favours? If your F-class mission does come through, let us know, and so we can chat to you about that. But also,
indeed, yeah.
If your colleague Kate wants to talk about Chaops, then we'd love to have her on.
Yes, okay, I will do that. I'm writing it down now, so I'll make that suggestion, because I know she's going to be, or she is already being inundated with requests, but I would certainly put a good word in to
yes,
that's
the direction.
You can put us to the top of the pile, I'm sure.
Yes, okay, I'll do my best.
Awesome. Thanks so much for doing this. We know you're a busy man, so we appreciate it.
Well, I'm just glad we managed to do it, because it's been, I don't know why it's that tough. It's just, it was one of those things where every time I set a time, something came up. So I'm glad. That's why I just said, let's go for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, if you're in London, if you're in London, let us know, and if you fancy a pint, we should all go for a pint, because it sounds like that would be fun.
Or we'll go to a gig.
Or go to a gig.
Yeah, indeed. I'm trying to work something out with Alexander, so maybe we could all hang out. That'd be quite cool.
The Interplanetary Podcast is alive!
Well, thank you very much, Matt Taylor. We thought you were brilliant, and we'd love to have you back on soon.
As soon as his new mission comes up, we'll get him on.
Let's absolutely do that.
Jamie?
Yeah?
Should people like and subscribe?
Oh, God, yeah.
Should people nip over to Patreon?
I think they should nip over to Patreon. See if you want to, you probably just want to see if you want to join an elite crew of legends who make this show happen.
We've had some fantastic new patrons join us this month.
Welcome.
I'd
like to wish everyone a lovely weekend.
And me. We haven't got a space fact, but never mind.
I'll tell you what my space fact is.
Yeah, go on.
I'm sure we're living in a multi-universe. Oh, yeah, baby universe.
Awful space. That's the worst space fact I've ever heard.
I just wanted to annoy that person who complained. I'm sorry. I am going to go now, and have a great weekend, everybody. don't forget to look up and dream the impossible dream.
Oh, yeah, baby, impossible dream.
Bye.
Goodbye, Spodcat.